and welcome to another Back of the Net podcast. Unfortunately, the video didn't work this week between myself and Michael Dunne, technical issues. So what we're giving you on YouTube is the audio version of our match chat. Just want to say that if you download the whole podcast, if you go to your normal podcast app and search Back of the Net Bournemouth, you can listen to the whole hour-long show where we also preview Arsenal. There's a bit of Do You Remember, some raw match audio and your fans' thoughts as well. Really appreciate everyone that got in touch. So no video pod as such this week. However, if you're still interested in listening to what we have to say, then stay tuned because I'm joined by Michael Dunne. He did the incredible All Departments podcast for many years, and you can still listen to many of his archive pods on YouTube. Just click the card at the top of the screen and you'll be able to do that there. Until then, Merry Christmas and see you on Boxing Day outside the Vitality. So a lot of frustration, a few disgruntled comments there. And as I said, Michael Dunne is with me. Michael, how are you?
I'm all right, Sam, but as you can imagine, I'm disappointed, frustrated, and my weekend would have been better if we'd have actually managed to win at home yesterday, but no. Instead, we conceded a late equaliser to send us all into Christmas, just feeling a little bit fed up.
Yeah, that's right. It's a real shame, and many of us sort of expect these kind of things to happen. But I honestly thought after Chelsea we may have turned a corner, but alas, we did what Bournemouth do, and it was a very poor performance. We started with 4-5-1, the same team that started at Chelsea. Was that warranted?
It was what I expected, because that's what Eddie tends to do. He tends to reward the players after a victory with their place in the team, unless they're injured. And yeah, it was what I expected to see, but I think I probably would have rather have seen Callum Wilson start, knowing that he was fit. I did read a rumour somewhere that he was not injured, that Eddie had taken him out of the team for some reason. I'm not sure how much truth there was in that, because we're not exactly blessed with riches, certainly in terms of depth in the striking department. But I probably would have started him yesterday, but you know, it was no surprise to me when Eddie went with the same team as at Chelsea.
And Burnley are always a very difficult team to break down, and we've not had much success against them in the Premier League. I think we've won once at home and then once away, but even that was through a sort of last-minute defensive mistake that I think Defoe and Callum Wilson capitalised on to send us home winning 2-1. But other than that, I'd say they are probably our bogey side in the Premier League. And what were your thoughts before the game? Were you full of confidence after that Chelsea win?
No, I wasn't, unfortunately, because as you said, this is kind of what we tend to do. We get a big result, and then against the lesser teams, the teams that we should be maybe doing better against week in, week out when we play them in the Premier League, we seem to slip up and not perform at the same level. And I think also, and this is the same for every team, if we'd have played Burnley midweek, like last Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever, I think we probably would have won. But by the time the game on Saturday comes around, the momentum from the victory at Stamford Bridge has faded somewhat. And yeah, then of course you know what you're going to get with Burnley, and despite them being criticised, that's the way it is, and you have to go toe to toe with them. And you know, everything I thought favoured them in terms of even the conditions. Sean Dyche must have been licking his lips when he looked at the weather forecast and thought it's going to be a really filthy day out there, and we can come and play exactly the way we want. It's going to be really difficult for Bournemouth to handle it. And well, overall we handled it quite well, but ultimately we didn't do enough ourselves and ended up getting the kick in the teeth right at the end.
Yeah, it was a very bitty first half, wasn't it? And unfortunately, during this match, I was sat at a very low position. I was in row B, which I cannot stand. I like to be sort of row H or above, because at least you get some kind of perspective. Because when you're low down, it's just players crisscrossing each other and you don't really get to see what goes on. But to me, it seemed really bitty. And apart from Lerma's shot from distance that sailed over the bar, I think it almost hit the hoardings, we didn't really have anything to crow about. But there were a lot of calls from the Bournemouth fans, boring Burnley, a lot of fouls being conceded, and then early on there was a bit of an incident with Simon Francis. What was your take on that?
When I first saw it, I thought that Fran had put his head in closer to his Barnes, wasn't it? Barnes' foot than
that's right.
The other way round when I saw it, live. And I kind of agree with what the referee did. When I saw it later that evening, I thought it was at least a yellow card. The crowd got on the ref's back a lot yesterday, and I thought it wasn't really justified. I don't really like it when our fans get on the ref's back, because I always think it's going to backfire. I think some referees will think to themselves, right, well, I'll show you. Do you know what I mean? And they'll start to give the little decisions against us and maybe not give us what we think we should get. And watching our players on the pitch, there was a number of instances where the fans were up in arms and all the usual stuff about all we want is a decent referee. Even when he gave the yellow card, they were singing it took you long enough. Our players, for the majority of those decisions, had no complaints. They just sort of shrugged and thought, well, the referee's got it right there. And so I was probably in a minority, but I didn't think, it was Martin Atkinson, wasn't it? I didn't think he had that bad a game.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm always a bit concerned when the referee becomes the target of the fans' frustrations, whereas really we need to look at ourselves and what we're doing on the pitch as opposed to blaming some other, factor. And I did find that a little bit annoying yesterday, and I just thought, well, we're clutching at straws really. And but going back to the instance with Simon Francis, that was a yellow card. I mean, he got that one wrong. He saw it once, like I did. I mean, obviously he has the benefit of VAR. I guess they must have said to him, whether it was a yellow or not. But looking at it in the evening, I thought, well, it's basically, whether he meant to do it or not, he's kicked him in the head, and that's normally a yellow card these days, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And it was one of those that didn't, as you say, looked not too bad at the time, but when you watch it back, it looks incredibly worse. And there seemed to be a number of instances throughout that first half where the Bournemouth fans were, berating the referee, and there were, anti-football, hate Sean Dyche. Twitter bingo was out in force after the game. We should be beating teams like Burnley. I'm glad I don't have to watch that every week. In fact, they've got their own bingo scorecard that they were posting on Twitter a number of times. And I think Bournemouth probably got a full house yesterday. What's your take on Sean Dyche and Burnley? Because they kind of remind me of a Stoke City of the Premier League, but maybe with a bit more dynamism, because they seem to pull results out of the bag sort of week in, week out. And, they're never a team that you would ever think would be in trouble in terms of relegation, are they?
No, it's not pretty the way they play, but that's the way it is. You have to learn to win against different types of teams, against different styles of football. Complaining about, how do you watch this every week? You're an embarrassment and all this kind of thing. I mean, I was cringing when our fans were singing that. I thought this is going to come back to bite us, at some point in this game. And so it didn't. They were singing it back to us at the end. They didn't have that many fans there yesterday, but those were there. Obviously went home very happy, laughing their heads off. And that's the way Dyche plays, and it's been successful. He's kept them in the Premier League. He's got them into Europe. And we can't really have any complaints about any of that, about their style of football. And particularly post-game. The only time you should be, in my opinion, giving it to the opposition about their style of football and all that kind of thing and calling them boring is when you're 3-0 up. Not when it's 0-0 in a tight game that could easily go either way, and we're prone to shooting ourselves in the foot in those situations. So I'm glad I don't have to watch Burnley every week. But at the moment I'm sort of watching us through my fingers the way it's going.
I mean, does it concern you the way that we really struggle to break down teams with this low block? I mean, for instance, case in point, Sheffield United at home, Norwich at home, Newcastle away once they went 2-1 up, Watford. We really struggle when teams are so well drilled, defensively. We just cannot break them down. And I'm not even sure I know what the solution is.
Yeah, it does worry me. We're not creating anything in the penalty area. Yesterday, we did okay in the second half, but in terms of chances, we didn't have any shots on target. The final ball was always either going astray, or we were making the wrong decision, or we were just sort of hitting and hoping. And even when we did have a couple of chances to pull the trigger, for some reason we decided not to do it. And we're just that is, I think, the main reason that we lost yesterday. All that other stuff about Burnley and the weather and the referee is just they're just excuses. I know Eddie Howe knows this because he alluded to it in his interview at the end about how we were, and this is exactly what I was thinking during the game. We were playing too many negative passes backwards, sideways, too much dilly-dally, not enough offensive work going forwards. And even when we did pass the ball forwards, I noticed a few times when the ball was being played out wide to Fraser, for example, it was the ball was going in behind him, not in front of him, where he could run onto it, and the momentum was constantly breaking down. And that has been a real issue for us recently. And if we're not doing that properly, and we're not getting after teams that are looking to just, block us and maybe hang on for a point or nick a goal, then, it was shown now for the past, 6 or 7 games, that doesn't work. And we need to try something else. And hopefully at those words that Eddie said to us, we're ringing in the ears of the players in the next couple of games, because we need to really go for it a bit more. We seem to have been, I don't know, is it confidence in the team because of the defeats? Is it to do with the personnel changing and not enough leadership in the team? But we just look like we're just almost too timid at the moment, and it isn't working, is it?
No, it's not. Now, Lewis Cook came off in the first half, and he made changes on half time. What were your thoughts on Lewis Cook? Well, I mean, obviously starting on the right hand side, did very well at Chelsea, although it looked a difficult game for him yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his position, so I think that needs to be taken into consideration first. He's playing out of position. He didn't have a great game yesterday. He was the one that was sacrificed. He could have sacrificed other midfielders. I mean, even Fraser, for example, could have gone off. Yeah. I guess he wanted to come on because he was the only out-and-out winger he actually had on the pitch. Any of them probably he could have pulled, apart from Lerma, who was excellent again. And then he went with Wilson up front. But even then, we pretty much kept the same formation. King went out wide, didn't he? And Fraser was out wide as well. And I would have preferred to have seen King and Wilson up front together, because that was probably another factor in the balls into the box going nowhere, is we didn't have enough men in there sometimes. They weren't. No, that's right. Like the two of them weren't in there together. One of them was actually probably playing the ball in as opposed to being on the end of it. Not the greatest game for Lewis Cook, but he's a central midfielder. So you play him out wide in one game, it works well, but it's not going to work game after game. And hopefully we'll see Harry Wilson back in the team soon, because at least he's got goals, despite there's been some question marks over his performances. But also Junior Stanislas, I would have liked to seen him come on yesterday. He's back in the squad, and I was surprised Eddie didn't bring him on at any point.
Yeah, that's right. And it's, after the game, obviously, I didn't realise at the time, but, Rico's booking now puts him out of the next game as well. So, I mean, we're not only sort of injury prone and having so many players out, we're also got this yellow card as well to deal with. So we're kind of thinking, who's going to play left back? And all our left backs at the moment, even Adam Smith, who's the deputy left back, not available. So thinking, okay, like Ryan Fraser wing back, what on earth are we going to do against Arsenal?
Well, have we still got Brad Smith on the books? Is he going to put in a surprise appearance?
We might have to fly him over. I really don't know.
Yeah, Kelly's injured, isn't he? Obviously, Charlie Daniels is out for the season. Like you said, Adam Smith. So Brad Smith's the only one I can think of, but I don't really know what the situation is there. I'm pretty sure he's still our player, isn't he? You've been over in Seattle and he's done well over there. It's a completely different league, though. But I'd be surprised if we saw him against Arsenal, if he suddenly emerged from the US and pulled on the shirt. But yeah, he's either going to play a different formation, or someone's going to come back unexpectedly, like Kelly or even Adam Smith. But yeah, it just goes on. We have an injury crisis, and then we've got barely. I think unless your name's Jordan Ibe, at the moment, if you've got a pulse and you can walk, you're in that squad. Every single game.
I might bring my boots next week. Yeah,
exactly. I've been waiting for the call. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sort of, we don't usually play well with 5 at the back, but then, that enables us to have wing backs. I mean, Ryan Fraser has played, left back or right now, I think left back before in a 4, but I mean, it's crazy that we're having to resort to these kind of tactics by having him back there, but sometimes that is all we can do. In terms of Burnley though, they did nullify all our threats, and I think whilst we were poor, credit must maybe go to them for nullifying sort of most of our attacks. And It wasn't pretty at times. It was brutal. There probably should have been more yellow cards than what there were. I think that Bournemouth have now just won 2 of their last 11 under Martin Atkinson. Not that that really means anything, but Burnley and Atkinson, apparently, according to UREF, they're a match made in heaven. Burnley have just lost one of their last 17 Premier League matches under him. The record not so great for us, but Burnley's style was very physical. Would you honestly not like Bournemouth to be like that? I mean, if we were getting the points in the bag, would you still say you'd rather see the style that we've got at the moment rather than what they're seeing?
At the moment, I think any style I'd be happy with, because of we're lost the last 6 out of the last 7 games or whatever it is. We've scored 6 goals in the last 11 games, so a change of style I wouldn't object to that, but I don't think Eddie is going to do that. He's always been very true to his beliefs, and he's always said, this is the way we play, this is what we've trained to play, this is our philosophy, and we can't just change it at the drop of a hat. So I probably wouldn't care how we won a game at the moment if we could actually win one. I mean, obviously we beat Chelsea, but a home game, for example, nobody really, I don't even think the Burnley fans probably want to watch that kind of football every week. But they've got, I don't know, what is it, 22 points or something? They're in the top half of the table. I think now, yeah, and 24. So, significantly more than us. They're much safer than we are, and the fans must be absolutely delighted. I think another telling statistic, whilst we're on those, is that Burnley have won 3 away games this calendar year, and 2 of them have been against us, which I think tells its own tale. We're not, we're just not putting in enough decent performances at home, and we haven't done for quite a long time. Towards the back end of last season, we lost a few home games. Fulham is one that sticks out. Burnley was one of those as well. And this year, was it 3 out of 8 or something? And it's just not good enough.
No, it's not. And it always seems to be, I don't know, I think, are we expecting too much? Because we are 14th in the best league in the world, supposedly. Are we expecting too much? I'm not sure we are, because I think it's a real sort of difficult one. But when you look at it at the start of the season, on paper, we had a really strong squad. And we know that our squad is just not performing to the levels that it has done before, have they?
No. In terms of expecting too much, it is definitely a dream still for us to be in the Premier League. And that's a kind of a bigger picture view of saying, well, look where we are. We're definitely punching above our weight, and we have been for years now. But if you think, I'm sure Eddie doesn't encourage this in the dressing room, that kind of line of thinking just will lead you straight to relegation, because it's just like, well, look at what we've achieved. We've overachieved, and we can rest on our laurels, because even if we go down, we're not really going to be criticised, because look, we've made huge strides and made history, and we've got very much a claim to be Bournemouth's greatest ever team. Obviously, that is not the way to think. You've got to think game to game, season to season, and eke those points out. I'd rather we were, flying up there with Sheffield United, but the reality is we're not, and try and stay in the league. It isn't that much fun having to just cobble the points together and crawl across the line. And at the start of every season, this one was a good example of that. It was there was quite a lot of optimism. I remember the transfer window shut. We've done a lot of good business, and I was thinking, well, hopefully we will have a season where we're pretty much in and around the top half, and maybe a little flirtation with finishing a European place, or doing well in a cup. But it just hasn't happened. I mean, there's no denying the impact of the injuries. That's been massive, and even the players we haven't seen, like David Brooks, feels like a massive miss as well. And that could really kill us, the players that are missing going into the new year, depending on how things go in the next few games. But we've got to, and Eddie said this in the interviews, we've got to just face up to the fact that we're in a relegation battle, and nobody wants to go down. I mean, the Championship was fun; it was brilliant. But you see teams go down and then they go down again. And I think if we were to do that, we wouldn't recover, because this is basically a once in a lifetime thing for us, and there'd be a fire sale of players, and any talk of a new stadium, and even the training ground might not get built. So we've just got to. I remember Steve Cook saying a couple of seasons ago that we've got to just engage in this fight to the death and make sure that we somehow stay up. And at the moment, it's looking a bit touch and go. But 14th isn't 18th. If you stay above that line on the last day of the season, then you're safe and you can start again. It's not going to be any fun necessarily, but hopefully we'll somehow manage to hold on to our Premier League status.
Yeah, have you ever been one to doubt Eddie or doubt the coaching staff that are doing all their work behind the scenes, or have you always stuck firm in supporting him?
No, he can't do. Well, I would say he can't do any wrong in my eyes. He can do almost no wrong in my eyes. So I just don't think that there's anybody else for the job, and I think he's the kind of the keystone in our success. And once he goes one way or another, we will sooner or later drop like a stone, and we're not going to find anybody like him again. Certainly not for a long, long time. Sorry,
in terms of Eddie Howe, though, you're kind of looking at the teams he could jump to. And there's teams like West Ham being linked to Rafael Benitez, albeit he's turned it down. Everton, of course, Carlo Ancelotti. They're looking for big name managers. So you think, what club could he feasibly go to next, given they don't seem to be interested?
No, I think the most likely exit for him is when he's given his cards. I don't see that happening anytime soon. No. And even if we get relegated, I'd rather he stayed as manager. And he seems to have a very good relationship with the owner and with Jeff Mostyn. There's also obviously the England job, which could come up. But football tends to be quite people look at things quite short term. So you win a few games and you're the greatest thing ever, and big clubs have suddenly been linked with you. You lose a few games and you're useless, and you'd be lucky to have a job in a month's time. So at the moment, his star is not in the ascendancy. Those clubs like you mentioned, West Ham and Everton, they just can't appoint a manager like Eddie Howe. The fans won't have it. He's not a big enough name. He hasn't got any European experience, and compare themselves then to the other clubs of similar size or even bigger. They've all got big star name managers, haven't they? And Eddie just isn't in that category. And that's fine with me, because the longer he stays, the better. But things aren't going well at the moment, but I'd definitely stick with him no matter what. Yeah,
I'm very much the same, I think. So, what do we do next then? Because obviously we're playing Arsenal. I think part of me thinks that we do better against teams that come out and attack. And maybe, Arsenal could be just the tonic. But typically, though, they would have to appoint their manager when they did. I know they got a 0-0 against Everton. However, Arteta was in the stands for that. So this is his first proper match in charge. And it was a shame. I just wanted them to hang on for another week or so. And you're just thinking, right, then with their new managerial bounce, it's not going to be the kind of Boxing Day Cherries extravaganza that I hoped. I think it's going to be a very difficult game for us. It was always going to be hard anyway. However, I now think with the new manager, it's going to be even tougher.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same. I was really hoping that they wouldn't appoint anybody until after they played us. And all week, looking at the news, the sports news, and you could just see it was getting closer and closer. And they, I just guaranteed they were going to appoint him before the game at Dean Court. And it's just so difficult playing against a team with a new manager, because you don't know anything about how they're going to approach the game. You don't know what team they're going to pick. You've got no idea what the tactics are going to be. And obviously the players suddenly were going to find some extra motivation because the new guy's in and they want to impress, they want to keep their place in the team, and all that new manager bounce thing. So that could really hurt us, I think, come Boxing Day. You never know. We could spring a surprise and get a result. Even a draw would take us on to 20 points, which would be pretty much par, because it's the halfway point. Right. It's the 19th game, isn't it? So I think it's going to be a really difficult game. I think there's a good chance that we will lose, mainly because of what we talked about regarding Arteta. There's players there like Pepe. How much did they sign in for? It was 70+ million, wasn't it? And he's not performed at all. But he might suddenly look like the player he was meant to be under new manager, even if it's only for a few weeks, like Pogba did at Man United when they appointed Solskjaer. He suddenly started looking like a good player for a few weeks, didn't he? And
that's right.
Obviously, we could be the first victims of that. So hopefully none of that will happen. In terms of what Eddie's going to do, I guess he just has to go with what he's got. He hasn't got a lot of fit players. There may be one or two coming back. I'd imagine he'd keep that quiet for the time being, and we'll only find out on the day. Hopefully he'll play King and Wilson up front if they're both fit together, and we'll just have to dig in and remember what happened against Burnley and see if we can pull something out. When we do tend to, I suppose, like a lot of teams, raise our game against bigger name teams. Arsenal aren't what they were. We did the same against United. They're not what they were either. But then, of course, we beat Chelsea. I did hear a theory that the reason that the smaller teams do that is because the players see it as a bit of a shop window. They know that more people will be watching. There's possibility of getting a move to a bigger club if they play well in those games. I mean, that doesn't really matter what their motivation is, as long as they find it from somewhere. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm not feeling optimistic about that one. But I wasn't feeling optimistic when we went to Stamford Bridge, so who knows?
No, that's it. Well, I mean, obviously, they scored late on. Jay Rodriguez, he seems to be, our nemesis at the Vitality, either scoring for Southampton or, if not, for Burnley. And they hung up a cross, headed it in, and I could see it coming. And yeah, 1-0. It was absolutely typical, and it was a very drab day. But one of the brighter parts of the day came via the PA after about 5 minutes or so, with Mike Botto announcing the incident involving the BMW, whatever reg plate it was. Michael, have you ever turned up to a game and been so excited to get to the ground that you just left the car with its lights on and engine running?
We're digging for some bright moments now. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. No, I haven't. I don't normally drive to the games, but I'm always excited when I go to football. I love going, but no, that was I don't know what happened. I said to my dad who came with me, I said that was probably Jordan Ives' car.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, you never know. But that was one of the brighter moments. And yeah, the conditions weren't particularly great. And now the Cherries are sitting on 19 points, and we're recording this on Sunday, obviously. And new manager bounce. Well, I know that he was in charge last week, but Watford today got a result over Man United 2-0. What did you think of that?
Oh, my heart sank when I saw that. I just hoped United would win, because you want the teams below us to always lose, don't you? And so they've only got 12 points now, but like you said, they've got a new manager as well. So if they pick up a few results, and suddenly the gap starts to close. They hadn't won at home all season, and United aren't. I mean, we beat them, but it's just disappointing that another weekend of depressing results. Southampton winning 3-0 away at Aston Villa, although it puts Aston Villa further in the mire. I would rather they beat Southampton. And so we just have to wait until Boxing Day, and hopefully things will seem a bit brighter. They're a winner, going back to that. Yeah. Both teams defended quite well yesterday. That was something that we should, I guess, praise, because they were difficult conditions. I always think being a goalkeeper must be a nightmare, although Pope literally had nothing to do.
Every cross seemed to go straight into his arms.
Yeah, that was a frustration, actually. Every time we had a corner, we had about 4 corners in a row at one point in the second half. Yeah. And they were just all either straight to Pope or cleared away. We never got to one of them. And I guess that just highlights the absence of the likes of Cook and Ake. And we had a few free kicks that we knocked in from sort of out wide as well. And exactly the same thing happened over and over again, didn't it? And right. So that was annoying. I mean, Rico's delivery is normally quite good, but you always seem to just hit it straight to Pope, or he seemed to hit a few of them too deep, which I guess could have been connected to the wind. But yeah, the goal, Francis, and I think it may have been Stacey, they didn't really seem to get off the ground and get up and challenge Rodriguez. And then he didn't even make a proper connection. It sort of seemed to hit the side of his neck and his shoulder at the same time, and went past. I mean, Ramsdale had no chance with that. It was right in the corner. No. Then there was a brief delay for VAR, and I was down the other end. I think you were as well, and just couldn't see what happened. I was hoping they were going to rule it out, although I didn't have a great deal of hope. And so I was thinking probably just prior to that, well, a point's a point, and it's not great. We haven't scored, but difficult day, and we'll take it, and puts us on to 20, like I said earlier. But we didn't even get that. And I wasn't actually that surprised when they scored. Frustrated, and I've been fed up about it since. But it just if you go 0-0 deep into a game, there's always a chance one team's going to nick a goal. And the way things have been going for us recently, it's going to be the opposition, and so it proved. And it just takes all the gloss off the Chelsea game. We didn't back it up. and I guess we've just got to dig deep and find some optimism from somewhere and go again on Thursday.
Yeah, so, I mean, assuming that Rico is not suspended, when Steve Cook comes back, who makes way? Let's assume that Nathan Ake is going to be out for quite a while. Obviously, we've got Stacey, Frano, Mepham and Rico. Who gets displaced?
Yeah, it's getting complicated now, isn't it? Because I think it probably would be Mepham. He hasn't played that badly. I mean, obviously he did well against Chelsea. He did okay yesterday. I mean, like I said, all the defenders did all right, really. But he'd probably be most likely to go. He's not going to drop Francis. Eddie absolutely loves him, and I think partly for his leadership as much as anything. And so, I mean, Frano could go out to right back, and Stacey could drop out, but he's played well as well. So whoever goes, I guess it will be a little bit unfair on them, but I suppose we'll have to just wait and see what happens with the formation and the defence that he plays against Arsenal in the absence of Rico, and then that will have an impact on whoever plays in the Brighton game. The thing about Cook is, I don't know if you saw, he was interviewed on Football Focus yesterday, and I was looking. I spent the entire interview looking at his hands and I couldn't see any plaster cast or anything like that. Nothing to indicate there was anything wrong with his wrist. And I thought, oh, maybe he's going to be playing. And then at the end of the interview, the interviewer said, so, Steve's going to be watching along with all the other Bournemouth fans. And I thought, oh, he's not playing. But it's an odd injury, isn't it? That he's out with a wrist injury. It doesn't even seem to be strapped up.
No, he doesn't. And he seemed to have a lot of wrist movement on an Instagram video that he posted. He sort of posted I think it's his left hand, is it maybe? Sort of, clenching and unclenching. And it seems to be all right. But you think, surely with a bit of pain relief and maybe the strapping, he might be back for Boxing Day. And, that's my hope. And if that does happen, I'm just wondering what does happen. I'm not sure that Frano's got the legs to play right back. So it just depends who's going to get dropped out of Francis or Mepham. But then, obviously, we are very we haven't got a left back, so maybe he'll go 5 at the back. I don't know, and try to sort of absorb Arsenal's attacking prowess. I've got no idea. I've seen a few team formations already, but obviously we don't really know what's going to happen. I'm not even sure when Eddie does his press conference, because obviously it's usually the day before. But I'm sure hopefully he's going to have Christmas Day off, or maybe not. Who knows? But it's going to be a very difficult one. We'll go on to sort of preview it shortly. Let's assume Bournemouth are going to be all right this season. Let's assume Bournemouth are safe. At this point in time, who are the 3 clubs that you think are destined for relegation, or can we not? I mean, can you name a handful of teams that you think are going to be in the mire?
Well, Watford, obviously, although big win for them today. New manager, he managed to keep Leicester up that time the season before they won the league, and they were really almost down, weren't they? And they won 5 games in a row or something. So he's got a bit of pedigree in those situations. Norwich seem to be really struggling. I think
Norwich will be there.
Yeah. And Southampton, I don't think they'll go down. I kind of think they're immune to relegation. They haven't been down before, obviously, but I don't think they will. And in a way, I want them to stay up. I want them to finish 18th, 17th on goal difference. Yeah, because I like playing them. It's like fun going to play them up there, and when they come here. Yeah. So Villa, I think is possible. Us, hopefully not. As you said, we're going to put that one to one side.
Not.
Don't know. Maybe somebody could fall from mid-table, but it's hard to really say at the moment. I think those 3 are in the relegation zone that I said at the moment. I think
that's right.
They're the most likely. They're not really putting anything together. I mean, Villa keep losing. I mean, that was a big game yesterday, Villa-Southampton, and Southampton easily came out on top, didn't they? And so, I think Norwich almost definitely. Watford, if they hadn't won today, I'd have said definitely for them as well. So we'll just wait and see what happens in the next few games. And Villa, I think they've got a very good chance of getting relegated.
Yeah, it's like part of me just can't see Watford going down, but time will tell, of course, and hopefully Bournemouth can improve their chances with 3 points on Boxing Day. It's not looking likely, but who knows?